Burgundy. It's got to be the most lusted after, read, written about and sought after wine region on the planet. And in March 2023, I visited for my very first time. In this video, I'm standing on a hillside overlooking Poligny-Montrachet village, talking with my colleague William Kelly, who reviews Burgundy for Robert Parker Wine Advocate. Our cameraman is also our colleague, Johan Castang, and he also reviews Burgundy along with William for Robert Parker Wine Advocate. And I'm sure that you will agree he has put in a valiant effort filming for us in wind, rain, and on a day that I am sure that he thought that he was just going out for lunch, followed by a tasting. Anyway, I hope that you enjoy this video as much as we did filming it, and you've got something good to drink while you watch it.
Has he started it yet?
He has.
Oh, you've started it already?
He started.
Oh, no.
This is my first trip to Burgundy, and I'm really excited. I'm here with William Kelly, my colleague and friend, and the best tour guide for this region on the planet. So, William, where are we?
We are in Blagny, so we're in one of the highest altitude parts of the Côte de Beaune, parts of the Côte d'Or. Right down there on the plain, we're at about 70 meters or so. Up here, we're up to 260 meters or so above sea level. So thin soils, cooler site that tends to do quite well in warmer vintages because there's enough clay that it retains water. And this is all Chardonnay around us. So.
It's been really interesting for me to drive just down all of these multitude of roads that we've been on and see all of the different farming practices. I'm quite obviously from a New World perspective, we don't do this. We don't have a vineyard where we farm it so dramatically within the one space. Does the different farming practices of each producer impact their neighbours? I feel like it would.
Well, less than you would think, because a density like this is 10,000 vines per hectare.
Yeah.
It forms a pretty good wall of foliage. So even, my own parcel, when the neighbour uses fertilizer, I get some fertilizer on the first row, but after that, nothing. So it's there are surprisingly effective barriers. I mean, especially nowadays, more and more people are just using contact treatments as well. So those things don't carry that far.
Yeah.
No, less than you'd think.
Yeah.
But it is very intensive farming with densities like this. It's just that you get that here, you get that in parts of Bordeaux, but not many viticultural regions plant at such high density.
And very close to the ground.
Yeah, again, then the tradition was to try to get more radiative heat from the soil. Today, that's actually a disadvantage.
Yeah.
If there were one thing you might think about changing, planting a new vineyard, you might raise the fruiting zone by 15 centimeters or so. Somebody this year did, in Bordeaux, they're trying effectively putting down...
Okay, well, let's just keep going, because we can just edit over that.
And what we with using sort of matting, white matting to protect the soils from the heat, because obviously a lot of root systems in the soil, so if you can stop the soils getting hot. But in Burgundy, the result was all the fruit just got immediately cooked.
Yes.
Because the reflection was too much. Because we're very close. Yeah, we're very close to the soil.
But as the climate warms, surely that may need to be adapted.
It may, but it's going to be complicated because all at a density like this, the only way to cultivate until recently was using over-row tractors. Now you have Caterpillar track vehicles you can go in between, but if you have an over-row tractor, you can't go much higher than 1 meter 10, 1 meter 20.
Okay, I understand,
And so that means you have to keep your vine as low as possible so that your fruiting, you have enough foliage.
Yeah.
So if you raise that and your tractor's still at 1 meter 10, you're not going to have very many leaves. So it's a challenge. In fact, one of the reasons in Burgundy, it's a matter of pride. A lot of people to try to prune, to keep the vines from getting higher. So you always look for the lowest wood and try to bring the things down. It's because people don't really want to move this bottom wire.
That's interesting.
So.
And dirts as well. I want to talk about dirts because we've been driving through an awful lot of different types of dirt. We've got here, what?
Oh, clay limestone. The whole region is clay limestone, but a lot of variations on a theme. So you have essentially lateral and transverse faults. You have faults that run along the coast, this direction, and that will result in changes of strata within a vineyard, for example. I mean, we're very likely that this is a geological fault here, for example. And often then people would quarry into the faults, so exaggerating them. So you have different limestones like that, but then you also have quite big of these transverse faults which have been where the combe, the valleys that bisect the Côte d'Or, if you like, and we can't really see one here so easily, but on the other side of that ridge, there's the one that bisects Chassagne-Poligny with Saint-Aubin up the middle. So that also makes for big changes in in geology. Within the matrix of clay limestone, there's a lot of complexity in a small space because of all this faulting, which was created when the Alps were being created, essentially.
Explain to me the villages on the alluvial fans, because I find that quite interesting. You've mentioned that a few times. I like it.
Yeah. So we can see one right down there. That's Pouligny-Morichet. So often at the heads of the alluvial fans that come through these valleys that bisect the escarpment of the Côte d'Or, that's where villages were traditionally constructed because it's flat. The water table is accessible, so you can have wells and things, and you have land that's suitable for agriculture below. You can grow vineyards above, and the irony then is, of course, the appellation is constructed around the commune. The commune is an administrative, originally parochial construction of entirely human origins. Right? It has nothing to do with geological unities. So geological unities, you might actually cut up the Côte d'Or very differently in terms of the communes. For me, the lowest common denominator of terroir in Burgundy is the climat, which is a parcel that has a certain unity geologically in terms of exposition, in terms of mesoclimate. You cannot, for me, within Pouligny down there on the bottom and Pouligny up here, to what extent could those things be compared at all? I think, personally, for example, between high altitude Pouligny like this and Pouligny down on the flat right there, you have completely different soils, completely different fruit, much juicier, softer wines down there and much more chiseled, tense wines up here. For me, these wines have much more in common with high altitude Meursault or even Saint-Aubin or high altitude Chassagne, to the extent that there is high altitude Chassagne, than they do with the wines down below. So that would be the irony of Burgundy, is that the communal differences are cut on a north-south axis, whereas they should be running east-west, and you could have a commune that was all the top of the slope would make a lot more sense, really. But that's not how villages are constructed.
I think what I've learned since coming here in 48 hours is that it's infinitely bigger and more complex than I already thought that it was. I already thought it was this very complex mosaic of vineyards and flavours and soils and all of that, but it's even worse than I thought.
Oh, that's clear. And yet, remaining very small scale, because you look at these parcels, a parcel like this is not really very big. How many barrels could you make off of that? Perhaps,
you tell me, how many barrels of wine could you make from this?
If it doesn't frost. And if you're looking at a prestige cuvée of champagne being in the tune of 5 to 10 million bottles, a Bordeaux Chateau being in the range of 100,000 plus bottles, like a big Chateau of the Medoc, that is. In Burgundy, the smallest cuvée I review every year is 80 litres. So we're just dealing with entirely different orders of magnitude.
Tiny.
Even though it is a big region, so I think that's part of its charm as well. It comes with challenges viticulturally in terms of winemaking. You have a lot less room to maneuver. So sometimes it perplexes me that the wines are so good when you have so little margin of error. If you only have 3 barrels, what if you get a barrel that you don't like?
Something goes wrong.
And yet the wine, and you only have one variety. You have no blending possibilities because they're almost all monocepage wines, with the exception of things like Bourgogne-Passe-du-Grain or whatever. And so you have no room to maneuver, and yet the wines are magical. It shouldn't really be that way.
Can I ask you about your Aligoté? We were tasting your wine.
Sure,
I would like to ask. It was delicious. Look at all the birds.
We have some Eurofighter Typhoon, an Anglo-French
Do you always have
product.
fighter jets in
Burgundy?
Burgundy?
They like to come here because I guess it's a scenic route for the military
for the
aircraft.
Concorde or something. I want to talk to you about your Aligoté, because we looked at your wines yesterday and they were beautiful. I love the Meursault. I really love the Chambols. They're really nice kind of flavour and shape in the mouth. But the Aligoté was the wine I think that was the most interesting and surprising to me. Talk to me about that. Where's that from?
It's a great variety that has huge potential in Burgundy today, because people talk about changing varieties to counteract climate change and planting Sauvignon Blanc, things like that. To me, that's stupid. We have the varieties we need already. Traditionally, before the AOC system sort of brought in these rules that vineyards had to be just planted with one variety, there was more Aligoté planted with Chardonnay. Places like Coton-Charlemagne, there was quite a bit of Aligoté historically.
Really?
So it all depends on what genetic selection you have, how you prune it. It's naturally rather productive, naturally high acid. So to pick it late, prune it hard, and plant it in good terroir with good genetic material, and then it makes, I think, exceptional wines. But it'll only be it'll give you out as much as you put in. So if you vinify it in very good barrels with a lot of lees and give it a long élevage, you have a totally different result than if you filter your must, ferment it in tank, and bottle it after 6 months after a sterile filtration. It's not going to be the same.
Your wine that we tasted was complex and layered and full and delicious and exciting. It was really good. It was like surprised me how good it was.
No, I think I think Aligoté, it's taken me aback about what can be done with it, honestly. But it used to be planted also a lot more in superior terroir. I mean, in the Côte de Nuits especially, it was goblet pruned on the slopes, and you get low yields with goblet pruning. It's the same way people try to control yields in Gamay by pruning goblet.
Yeah.
And so it has a very interesting history that was a little forgotten, but now it's becoming very fashionable.
I was going to ask, do you think it has a very interesting future if it has a very interesting
I think
history?
So. I mean, hopefully it doesn't get too fashionable, and it's very easy to sort of make low sulfur, slightly natty Aligoté and sell it for quite a lot of money, and it remains cheap to buy Aligoté, globally speaking.
I've had some of these very cool natty low sulfur Aligotés, and
I don't know. We'll see how that goes, but hopefully that doesn't decredibilize the Aligoté Renaissance before it has been established.
Cool. It's very cold and wet.
And it's raining.
It's really cold.
But we need that.
You're happy,
look at
right?
this. This is fantastic. Yeah, because we had a lot of rain around Christmas, and since then, not very much. Like all of France. And it's a little alarming. So in terms of bud break, it's looking good for so far, because it's we're less advanced than we were in 2021.
Yeah.
So a bit less risk from that side, even though generally speaking it's still a little advanced. And the first full moon of April, which is a big frost breeze, is in the first week of the month.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get through that, and then
you're good.
And then we should be good.
Yeah.
Globally, we have less vigor than last year just because of the drought. When it's pruning, I was finding there's a little bit less wood than last year, but it's still looking okay. But we just need a lot of water.
And so it's been dry up to now. It's cold. It's cold though. Colder than normal.
Oh no! I think actually warmer than normal.
Okay, warmer and dry, bugger. It's not really what we want.
No, but for an Englishman, it's more or less it's nostalgic weather for me.
Yeah.
This is like being at home. Yeah.
This is like being in a wet fridge. Yeah. It's very cold. It's not what I'm used to.
This is like July in Newcastle.
Oh. Anyway, it's been real.
Right.
It's been real. Let's get back in the car. I think we should go drink some wine.